Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a truly intense piece of source material. It's essentially a blueprint for a legendary historical event, but it's written with the vivid, high-stakes energy of a modern movie script. Rather than just giving us a dry list of dates and facts, our source translates a historical battle into this incredibly visceral experience. It gives us the lighting, the camera angles, and the sheer, raw, emotional weight of an epic last stand. So we're going to break down exactly how this impossible confrontation is meticulously constructed to drop us right in the middle of the battlefield. Okay, let's get into it.
30 fearless warriors against an army of 30,000. Let that sink in for a second. Imagine standing your ground, knowing those are the odds. It's almost unimaginable, right? Our text today outlines the story of ultimate sacrifice and defiance. It captures this unbelievable moment where mathematics, military strategy, and, well, pure logic are completely overshadowed by unyielding resolve. When the raw numbers tell you that defeat is absolutely certain, what actually compels a person to draw their sword anyway? That is the profound question at the heart of our cinematic breakdown today.
Part 1. The sacred stage is set. December 1764, Amritsar, Punjab. Okay, let's dive into this and establish the exact time and place, because we really have to understand the space these armies are stepping into. Amritsar in 1764 is the absolute spiritual heartland of the Sikh faith. It's not just a geographic coordinate, it is the center of gravity for an entire community. Setting the scene here immediately skyrockets the stakes. This isn't a skirmish over a random stretch of territory or a trade route. This is a battle at the very threshold of the sacred.
Now, as we read through the source material, the opening visuals are just incredibly striking. Picture this. It's early morning. There's a thick, cool mist rolling in, catching those fragile, golden rays of early morning light. And right in the center of it all stands the sacred Darbar Sahib, widely known as the Golden Temple. It's a moment of profound, hushed stillness. You can almost feel the quiet tension hanging in the cool air. The author deliberately spends time describing this tranquility to create a harsh, stark contrast with the absolute storm of chaos that's about to break. It's the literal calm before the storm.
Moving on to part 2, 30 versus 30,000, an impossible asymmetry. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how perfectly the text captures the sheer, terrifying scale of the mismatch we're examining. The impossible asymmetry of these two forces is hard to even fathom, and the source material desperately wants us to feel the full, crushing weight of that imbalance.
30,000. The text describes a massive, earth-shaking advance of an Afghan army of 30,000 soldiers, led by Ahmed Shah Abdali. And the source paints a terrifyingly vivid picture here. You don't just see them, you hear them, you feel them. Thundering hooves of heavy cavalry, massive battle banners snapping aggressively in the wind, and the relentless rhythmic pounding of war drums echoing across the plains. Plus, there are these huge, suffocating clouds of dust kicked up by thousands of marching boots, practically blotting out the morning sun. It's described as an unstoppable mechanical wave of destruction cresting over the horizon, designed to inflict pure psychological terror before a single sword is even drawn.
But standing directly in the path of that massive wave are just 30 fearless Sikh warriors. Led by Baba Gurbaksh Singh, they are standing firm in front of the sacred complex. The text details their traditional blue Nahang warrior attire, standing resolute, armed only with traditional swords, spears, and heavy shields. These 30 individuals are making a fully conscious choice to hold the line. They aren't trapped, they haven't been caught by surprise. They've looked at the horizon, seen the dust of 30,000 approaching men, and made the deliberate, incredibly profound decision that they will not take a single step backward.
When we look at the raw breakdown of these forces, it absolutely hammers the reality home. You've got Ahmed Shah Abdali's Afghan army with 30,000 soldiers, war horses, and the deafening psychological warfare of drums. And against them, Baba Gurbaksh Singh's 30 Sikh warriors in traditional blue attire, relying on close-quarters weaponry. It's a ratio of 1 to 1,000. Every single defender essentially has to fight 1,000 men. To put that into perspective, it's an ultimate test of human will against impossible mathematics.
Part 3. Anatomy of the clash. Courage against overwhelming odds. So, how does a battle like this actually play out in our cinematic text? We're shifting gears now to look at the violent, explosive collision of these two forces.
The source gives us a really clean, structured, 4-part timeline to track the narrative arc. First, we start with that quiet, early morning mist and the serene environment we talked about. Second, the terrifying, deafening, massive advance of the 30,000 troops. Third is the relentless clash, the explosive, chaotic violence where these forces finally collide. And fourth, the inevitable return to a silent battlefield. It's a classic, intensely dramatic narrative structure. It pulls the viewer from total peace into escalating dread, right into explosive action, and finally, into a haunting stillness.
Now, during that third step, the relentless clash, the source text gets incredibly kinetic. The defenders don't just hunker down and wait. No way. They actively charge against these overwhelming odds. We're talking intense, deafening sword clashes, dodging massive horse cavalry attacks, fighting through the flying dust and absolute chaos with just their spears and shields. And what you should really take away from this is the sheer effectiveness of their resolve. Despite being so vastly outnumbered, the text notes these warriors fought relentlessly, inflicting incredibly heavy losses. They used surprise, sheer ferocity, and unbelievable martial skill to cut deep into an army 1,000 times their size.
Part 4. The cinematic execution. Visualizing the epic. Because remember, this isn't just a dry historical recount. The source material is explicitly written as a blueprint for an epic visualization. Let's move forward and see how this builds visually. It's like the author is actively directing a movie trailer in our minds, using highly specific techniques. We have sweeping aerial drone shots to emphasize the massive, terrifying scale of the advancing army against that tiny cluster of defenders. Then the camera pushes in for dramatic slow motion during the sword clashes so we can see every single parry and strike. There's this beautiful, haunting mix of gold and sunlight piercing through thick gray battle smoke. The text literally calls for high-contrast lighting and ultra-realistic 4K details to capture the grit. It is built from the ground up to feel like a massive photorealistic masterpiece.
But, amidst all that grand cinematography, the crucial point is the human element, the emotional weight. The text called for close-up shots of determined faces, emphasizing realistic facial expressions that capture the pure bravery, the harsh reality of sacrifice, the physical resilience, and just this unwavering devotion to their faith. We see the sweat, the exhaustion, and the sheer willpower in their eyes. These extreme close-ups are absolutely vital because they ground the chaotic scale of 30,000 men into deeply human, personal emotions. It makes a legendary last stand intensely relatable.
Part 5. The shrine remains standing. The silence after the storm. The roar of the battle finally fades out, and we reach the final movement of our text. The storm passes, the noise ceases, and we're left with the profound, heavy stillness of the aftermath.
And that brings us to a really profound question for us to chew on. What remains when the battlefield finally falls silent? When the dust settles, the war drums stop, and the 30 defenders have given absolutely everything they had?
Well, here is why this matters, and it's the deeply inspirational ending scene described our source. The sacred shrine Darbar Sahib remains standing. It's not just a building of brick and gold. The text explicitly states it symbolizes faith, courage, and immense resilience. The physical survival of the shrine represents the unbreakable spirit and the ultimate lasting triumph of those 30 warriors. They may have fallen, but they held the line long enough to secure a profound spiritual victory. Their objective wasn't personal survival. It was to protect what they held sacred. And in that, they succeeded entirely.
30 against 30,000. So I'm going to leave you with this thought. When faced with impossible odds in your own life, what is the one belief you would stand your ground for? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep reflecting, and I'll see you in the next one.